What we're talking about today is the kit that I've been using for competing in the tactical games. So we're going to talk about the guns I've been using, the nylon I've been using, all of the supporting equipment, and we're even going to talk about some of the clothes that I wore and some nutrition considerations. And we're also going to talk about the things that I would change moving forward. So we're going to talk about the more exciting stuff first. So we're going to talk about the guns. So I'm going to start with the rifle. I'm going to get pretty nitty gritty with this. So this is a 13-9 Criterion Core gun that I've assembled from scratch. So Criterion Core barrel, we have a BCM gas block gas tube, pin and weld, Surefire 3-prong. We have a Centurion C4 12-inch M-LOK rail, and then to a Viltor Mur upper receiver. And then I have a Headspace BCM bolt and BCM bolt carrier with a Radiant SD charging handle. I just have that standard on basically every AR that I use. The lower parts kit is actually majority of FCD or Forward Control Designs parts. And then I have R safety, so the T.rex arm safety. Geisley STE trigger, so it's the lighter weight 2-stage flat face trigger. Bad lever, magwell. Magwell doesn't really matter all that much. And then I have an A5 buffer tube on here. So this has the T2 buffer weight in it. Now, we'll talk about furniture first when it comes to getting into this. So we have an Emissary Development axle grip. Really like this grip because it's very texturized. So the first match in Texas, things got very muddy, and having the additional texture was very beneficial. So these may seem a little aggressive to you if you've never used a grip quite like this, but I can assure you that with all the dirt and mud that we play with, that was very nice. Also have an Emissary mini handbrake up front. This is primarily for loading barricades, so being able to lean the gun into a barricade. And I also have impact weapons component, if I said that correctly, barricade stop. So same exact thing. We have it on the support side of the rifle because you don't need one on the other side. So you can load a barricade on this side, but if you're shooting off the other side of a barricade, you can use your hand just fine. So we have a section of Picatinny on the bottom of the gun. That is for just attaching bipods for when I'm zeroing and gathering data on the gun. So the optic setup on this guy is a Leupold Mark 6 1:6. This has the 5.56 BDC reticle. However, the elevation and windage is in MRAD, so I can dial basically for mils, and that's kind of what I did. Scalar works, 34 mil mount, and then an offset Delta Point Pro on our T.rex arms mount. So this optic setup, this rifle has worked very well. This is about a 2 MOA gun with 55 grain. I'll talk about ammo after I talk about the guns. So very much good enough when it comes to accuracy. You need at least a 4 MOA gun in the tactical games. You're going to shoot no smaller than 4 MOA targets. So if you can get to a 2 MOA, you're going to be golden. If you miss at that point, it's just on you. So with this optic setup, when it comes to picking an optic setup for the tactical games, what you want is basically an optic that you can see hits on paper out at 200 meters. So for some quality glass, that's going to require more magnification than others. So in the case of this Leupold, it only being a 1:6 is good enough. I can see hits on paper at 200 because this is very good glass, has really good light transmission. But some optics, if you have cheaper Vortex or a cheaper SIG optic, for example, you're going to need a little bit more magnification to be able to see the hits because the light transmission just isn't as good as this Leupold. So going forward, I probably will change this guy out to get a little bit more magnification, and just because I would like a different reticle. So if this had a mil-based reticle that had kind of a Christmas tree going on, I probably wouldn't change this ever. I think this would be the best optic ever. I think as a 1:6 LPVO for non-competition reasons, for shooting human-sized targets, this optic is probably really hard to beat when it comes to LPVOs. When you get to the 1:8 and the 1:10 range, that 8x and 10x magnification starts to get a little distorted, so the 1:6s generally are still better glass clarity. So yes, you can get LPVOs that are 1:10s. You can get I'm sure there's 1:12s at this point. I owned a Voodoo 1:10, great optic, but again, when you get to the higher magnification, the light transmission just isn't that good and you just can't see as well. So I'm actually able to see targets better with this 1:6 than I could with my Voodoo 1:10. So if I'm going to change this optic, I'm going to go to something in this realm. So a lot of competitors are using these. These are your medium power optics. So this is a 3:6:18 Leupold Mark 5, and you have the 2:20 or 2.5:20 NX8 Night Force. So these are pretty comparable in size to the 1:6. It's pretty close. Now the downside of these, obviously weight, the additional magnification. You're going to need a little bit more of a skill set to use this. So you have parallax you got to deal with. You have a little bit tighter eye box. But my biggest concern is the weight. So a lot of times you're not just shooting with these guns, you're running with them, carrying them. So having a lighter weight gun is kind of beneficial. So that's why I have a 13.9, as short as possible to make travel and whatnot easier, because I got to fly with this stuff. So I would go with this guy or the Night Force 2-20, which is a little bit longer, but it's actually, I think, lighter than that 3.6 to 18. So like I said, majority of elite competitors are using optics in this range, and like the 2.5 to 20, or sorry, 2.5 to 10 Leupold is another pretty common one. So there is one more thing I need to talk about with the rifle before we move on, and that is heat mitigation. So I have rail covers on this gun, and the gun is painted to help with that. So one of the experiences I had with tactical games is my gun got extremely hot to the point where I couldn't hold on to it. So you're doing everything outside, and if it's super sunny out, even just firing 12 rounds at a time and setting your gun down in the sun, your gun's going to get very, very hot. So the first thing you can do to help mitigate the heat is just paint it a light color, like I did here with just tan and brown and some green, trying to multicam arid paint it to match the kit a little bit, and then putting some rail covers on it. So I'm actually probably going to put the rubber Ergo 1913 rail covers on the top, just to, again, mitigate that heat even more. But that is one thing I cannot recommend enough, is put rail covers in your gun. It's not for, extra grip or looking cool or anything. It's just to mitigate some heat. Up next, we're going to talk about the pistol. So the pistol that I'm using is just my personal Glock 17. So this is the gun I use for USPSA. This gun is stock, other than the texture, the stipple job, and magazine release, but everything else is stock, and I just have a SRO mounted on top. So SROs are my favorite shooting optic. However, this may get changed out in the future for tactical games because as you're going to see, this is a very, very dirty gun right now, and doing burpees and other stuff with this has been an issue. So in Texas, it rained, got very muddy, and then in Idaho, very, very dusty with the moon dust. And multiple stages, I had my dot completely blocked because of an obstruction, because of just moving around in dirt and mud and whatnot. So SRO is great to shoot, but probably not the best idea for the tactical games. Now, other than that, Glocks will work no matter what. So shooting some of the stages, like the 2-gun stages, and even USPSA style shooting, you can get away with a Glock. But some of the other stuff in tactical games, like the more precise shooting that you're doing, like support hand or strong arm only at 15 yards, needing to get well-aimed shots off, the Glock has a significant disadvantage because of the trigger, regardless of what kind of trigger you have in this. So that's why you see a lot of 2011s and Atlas guns, because they're just going to be a little bit more accurate, easier to shoot. So going forward, I'm going to stick with the Glock. I'm not going to spend $8,000 on a pistol just to be a little bit more accurate. I'm going to keep doing what I can do with this Glock. Aside from the guns, we need to talk about the ammunition. So for 9mm, it's pretty simple. Just get ammo that's reliable. I would recommend going with a heavier grain, a little bit hotter of a round, because you shoot a lot of steel in the tactical games, and you don't want to have to shoot steel 3 to 4 times to get it to fall over. I saw that quite a bit, people shooting just target ammo, and they're shooting a Texas Star, the same plate 3 times, and it just wouldn't fall off. So this ZQI 124 grain is pretty hot ammo, and I've had no issues with it. When it comes to the ammunition for your rifle, there's a lot to consider. So I'm shooting Fiocchi 55 grain 223. So the Criterion core barrels are 223 wild barrels. So I have noticed with my personal guns, I have 5 of these, 5 guns that have Criterion barrels in them, that 223 ammunition, 55 grain specifically, seems to be just as accurate as 77 grain. So this being 2 MOA with cheaper ammo is fantastic, because again, it's cheap ammo, I can shoot a lot of it, and I'm still getting really good performance. Now, I will be swapping this ammo out, because the other consideration besides accuracy with ammo is having a consistent ammo. So when we shoot out the distance quite a bit with tactical games, so you're going to be needing to have a consistent ammo that can stretch out to 400 to 500, maybe 600 meters or yards. And what comes into play here is your standard deviation with this ammo. So this Fiocchi has a standard deviation of about 36 FPS, which is terrible. Good match ammo is going to be between 8 to 10. So I'm going to just basically find a better 223 55 grain, so I can have a little bit better of a standard deviation. Now the reason why that is such a big deal, so if you're shooting at 400 and you suddenly have a round that comes out 50 FPS faster, your hold's not going to be as high with that ammo. And then, or you can have an ammo that just comes out a little softer, and now your hold's going to need to be higher, and you're just going to miss the target. So the standard deviation plays into your accuracy quite a bit, especially at distance. Now I will say, if you're having trouble finding an ammo that can do both, I would prioritize the accuracy, because majority of your shooting in tactical games is within 200 meters, and you're just going to need an accurate ammo. The consistency within that distance doesn't matter as much. So now we're going to talk about the kit. So the nylon side of things, let's start with the belt. Let's get these guns out of the way. So up we have is the T.rex Arm speed belt. So obviously I'm going to use the belt that we make. This is a great belt. I have no complaints with the belt itself. Well, I do actually have complaints. We'll talk about it. So I use S-Tac pouches on the speed belt for tactical games. I need something that's going to retain magazines pretty well. I have done burpees with our Mars carriers and whatnot, and the magazines have fallen out. So something with a little bit more retention. I know I can tighten down Mars carriers, but with tech locks on the inside of the belt, that's a little bit uncomfortable when you're running around and moving. So I'm going with S-Tacs. Now, the only thing I would change with these S-Tacs is I want long ones for the rifles. So I have a medium and a long. I just want 2 long ones, so I'm gonna get a pair that's sewn together in the future. But for now, this works just fine. Dump pouch, this is really just for collecting magazines, what majority of people actually use the dump pouch for, and for water bottles, it's a big thing. A lot of people are running around these stages with no water. That's not me, I need water, so that's what this pouch is mainly dedicated for. Going around to the other side, we have I believe this is a smoke grenade pouch, but I use this to put my rangefinder in, and then I have a Kestrel pouch for the Kestrel. I don't actually compete with those things on me. This is just when I'm training on the range. I just have a pouch for those things, so they're not just bouncing around in the dump pouch. The combination of these 2 things together is well over $1,000, so I'm gonna have a dedicated pouch for it. Holster, this is a Ragnarok. It just has been cut down a little bit. We do not sell this variation. We probably never will, because with all of this material missing, the retention on the holster just doesn't last as long. There's a lot more stress on the hardware. Now what you notice is this little lever. I don't remember what this is called, but what this does is in between stages or during stages where I am doing a lot of movement, I can lock down my gun, and this guy is not coming out. And then when I need it to come out, I can just unlock it and it comes out very nicely. So that is what that is there for. So I generally have this spun around right here. So if I do forget to unlock this before stage, it's literally almost part of my draw and I can get the gun out pretty easily. So the complaints I have with the speed belt is that this belt is not designed around MOLLE attachments, and that's what I'm using here for the S-Tac pouches. So I have to kind of tape them down to get these to work well. So what I would prefer, obviously, is to have a MOLLE belt. Probably like a Ferro Concepts Bison belt would be better here, or I could use one wrap or something. But it's not even the belt itself that's the issue, but because there's a little bit of slack here in the MOLLE, these malice clips like to feed back through, and then these pouches will just come off over time. So I just basically, the tape is there just to make a big old knot so it can't fit back through the webbing. So other pouches like the Kestrel pouch here that is standard MOLLE is not so much of an issue on the speed belt, but there's still some play in the pouch that I would not like for magazine pouches. Now I do have gloves and tape on here. The gloves mainly just for admin reasons, for using on the range. I never really ever compete with these. I haven't yet, at least, but I do bring them just in case. And I have electrical tape for a number of reasons. So main reason why I use electrical tape is to occlude my dot when I'm shooting on the range. So generally just keep a piece of tape here for that. Moving on to the plate carrier, we have the AC1. Now we don't make this AC1 in Multicam Arid anymore. We've never made the speed belt in Arid. This is just a prototype belt. We make prototypes, we just use random colorways of material we have laying around. We happen to have Arid, so that's where that came from. That's a one of one, and we will probably never sell that. We probably won't sell Multicam Arid again either because it didn't sell well. But anyways, I kind of like Arid, it looks cool, so I'm gonna keep using it. The shoulder pads, we have our standard shoulder pads underneath of it, and then I have Spirited Systems on top. We have the standard cummerbunds. I just had one of the nylon guys in-house, so pull tabs on it, so I have like an advanced cummerbund going on, but in a 4-inch. And then I have pull tabs on the 9mm pouches because our pouches aren't designed specifically for Glock mags. They fit Glock mags pretty well, but they will fall out if I'm doing, again, like burpees or climbing over stuff, so I need pull tabs on them. And then last but not least, I have our shingle on here. So the shingle I haven't had to use yet. I could have used it a couple times, but I just haven't needed to. And this is just for if I need to retain extra magazines on the kit. So in some stages, you will need to carry up to 5x rifle and 5x pistol at the same time. Being able to fit all that on your kit is kind of difficult. So with the cummerbunds and the pistol belt, I can do 4 of each. So if I need to do a 5th, I can just throw this guy on there and I'll be good to go. Or I can just use my dump pouches and that's what I have been doing so far. But I can just bring this to the match. I don't have to keep it on the plate carrier, and then I can just throw it off to the side when I don't need it. Now the reason why this carrier is so slick is because this is a sport. So this kit is not set up for war or anything like that. This is set up to be a competition kit, and it's optimized for that. So I am carrying things up front, I'm climbing over things, I'm doing burpees, so I want this kit as slick as possible. And that's the main reason why it's set up the way it is. It is to be as slick and comfortable as possible. So the last thing we're going to talk about with this plate carrier is the plates themselves. So in tactical games, you need a 15-pound plate carrier. That's including the carrier itself. So when you weigh it, it's just the slit carrier, your cummerbunds, and what's in the plate bag. You don't get extra pouches. So the shingle doesn't stay on here for measuring. If I had a Camelback on there, that wouldn't stay on. So having good plates makes a world of a difference. And what we have in here is the Jackrabbit plates. So Jackrabbit makes these plates specifically for the tactical games, and actually they design them around the AC-1. So these can fit into a small AC-1. If I had a small Arid, that's what I'd probably use. But with a medium AC-1 and our plate backers, they fit just fine. They move around a little bit, but nothing to complain about. So these plates are extremely comfortable. They're flexible. They're filled with lead shot. So each one of these plates weighs 7 pounds, and then plus the carrier, the nylon of the carrier, right at 15 pounds. These make a world of a difference when competing. These are extremely comfortable. It is no fun climbing over things when you have a big old solid piece of steel on your chest. And we're doing burpees with that and you're getting a plate run up into your face. These are so comfortable, sometimes I forget I'm wearing a weighted vest. So I highly, highly recommend getting these Jackrabbit plates for tactical games. And they're cheap. These are 130 bucks. Yeah, I would like to mention though that as you can tell, those plates are very flexible. They are not ballistic. They are a training weight vest plate specifically for the tactical game. So if you buy those thinking that you're going to stop some sort of round other than a BB, it's not going to work. All right, next we're going to talk about the supporting equipment. So I'm going to start with the equipment that I bring with me, and then some of the equipment that you just need to help prepare. So first, ear pro. Having a comfortable ear pro is going to be very, very important. I do have auto noise barrier in-ears. These are great. And then I have my classic high threats. These are basically Swordens, just before they were called Swordens. I've had these for years. They've been working extremely well. Now I will say, if you're going to use the in-ears, you can't be like me, basically, and that is be sensitive to concussion blasts. So generally you have 5 to 6 shooters in a line very close to each other, and that is actually why I wear over-the-ear headphones all the time, because I need a little bit more protection than what in-ear provides. Now I bring these as a backup, and also in between stages. I can just throw these in, I'm away from the firing line, I have some hearing protection, and I don't have over-the-ears with all of that heat being trapped in between stages. Eye Pro, I just use Oakley's. Nothing fancy here, but I just recommend here just bringing multiple pairs in case something happens to these get scratched up again. Tactical games is pretty rough on your equipment, so just have a redundancy for the stuff that you absolutely need, like Eye Pro and Ear Pro. Next, we're going to talk about a chronograph. So I'm using the Garmin Zero. Obviously we sell this guy. This is becoming the most common chrono because it's so small, lightweight, and it's very, very good. This is very important for gathering data on your gun. So I'm gonna grab my gun real quick. So part of being prepared for the tactical games is knowing your gun and your setup and building out a data card or a dope card, so data on previous engagement. These cards are extremely helpful when you're engaging targets at like random distances, like 340 meters, for example, and not just having to try and figure out your hold on the fly. So you need one of these to be able to create one of these, and you also need, some pen and paper. I just use Right in the Reins with multiple color pens, and then some clear tape to tape it on here. What I'm going to do in the future is, because we travel so far for these events and the environmentals are so different, is I'm actually going to be bringing this stuff with me, including the Kestrel, to these matches so that I can build the card day before the match starts, because I have built the card for here in Tennessee, and we're at much lower elevation, much more humidity. And when we went out to Idaho, for example, my hold at 400 meters was half a mil different. So environmentals actually play a big difference, or play a big part into creating this card. So all that being said, just make sure you have the equipment to build these cards. And what we haven't talked about yet is the Kestrel. What the Kestrel does is basically create this information. This gives you your environmentals, gives you your holds for all your distances, and all that sort of thing. So in the past, I have been bringing this to the matches just so I can come up to a stage, grab environmentals real quick, and just see if there's a noticeable difference with my card. So there's no issues with having that on you. Laser rangefinder is very, very important. So this is something that I bring to every single stage that I've competed in, and that is because one, all of my data is in meters. I have a mil reticle or mil adjustments on the reticle, and then Tactical Games does everything in yards. So one, I want to figure out exactly what the actual distances are per stage, and also every stage brief that I've gotten so far that includes a distance, the distance has been incorrect. So I want to verify that myself with a rangefinder. This has been very, very helpful, and I highly, highly recommend this. You don't have to keep this on your body during your movements or anything. Just during your stage brief, go up there, laze it, figure it out, and then you can pre-dial your gun or just remember your hold. So these are very, very important. Obviously, magazines are also important. So I just recommend having good magazines. Don't bring your cheapest mags out. As you can see from these are pretty dusty and dirty. So the only thing I'll mention here is, aside from having reliable ones, is to keep these clean. So there's actually some competitors that before every single stage, they take their magazine apart and wipe it off because they're so used to competing in the moon dust. And I'm not gonna go that far. These PMags, actually some of my Gen 3s have made it through a couple deployments in Iraq and have been working just fine. But with all that being said, if your gun does get very dusty, these are very easy to take apart and clean. I would highly recommend do that if you need to. Now with Glock mags specifically, when they get dirty on the sides, they like to stick, or actually majority of pistol mags will stick if they're dirty. So just having something to wipe these off will also be helpful. Now on the note of cleaning stuff, I definitely recommend bringing a cleaning kit. So again, both matches I've been to were very, very dirty with mud and dust. So what I have here is a cleaning kit that I built, and I just basically have everything possible. Everything I can fit in here possible is in here. So main things to note here that are, aside from your regular cleaning supplies that are important, is lens pens. So dust on your lens is no good. You definitely want to get them off so you prevent the scratching of your lens, but also you need to be able to see through your optic. So being able to see your hits on paper, again, out to 200 meters is very important. So having a lens pen to be able to clean your brush or clean your lens off on the fly is actually fairly important. So I actually have been keeping this on my body, and if I come up to a stage right before I set my gun down, I will break this out and use it if I need to. Other than that, this is just normal cleaning supplies. I do recommend cleaning your gun before your match and then after day one, not so much because of the carbon that you're getting on the gun, but just because of, again, the dirt that you're going to experience. Last but not least, we have a toolkit. So I'm not gonna go through all the tools in here. I just recommend having a toolkit built specifically for your gun. So if anything goes down, you can just make a quick repair. I will say having spare batteries, having a lighter buffer for your AR is very beneficial. So if your gun just starts to get really gunked up and not cycle, throwing a lighter buff in there often fixes the issue. Next to that, I would have an additional bolt face at a minimum with a firing pin. That's just a good rule of thumb to have with your gun at all times, not just for tactical games competitions, but just having that on you. Again, lugs on bolts like to shear off. That's one of the most common failures of AR, so just having a spare one of those is helpful. And other than that, just normal tools in here. So now we're gonna get into the less exciting stuff. We're gonna talk about clothing, and then we'll talk about some nutrition tips. So clothes are actually pretty important for this, being comfortable. What I like to wear is I like to wear kind of a hybrid short, and this is just the example that I wear. I actually haven't washed these yet from when we got back, but these are North Face packable shorts. So these are kind of like a gym short that has pockets and belt loops. I actually wear these all the time for various reasons, but they help with my everyday carry quite a bit. They just have a lot of nice pockets that don't make things stand out. But all that to say, just wear hybrid shorts, a good idea. Now, some people do change like after every single stage because you do have a lot of time in between stages. So if you're going on a long run, some people will just throw on some running shorts. If you're doing a rope climb, some people will change into pants so you don't get rope burn like I did. But for me, I just wear the same thing. Just wear shorts, and then for the shirt that I wear, I really like baseball tees. So the reason why I like baseball tees is just because they're a thin, lightweight t-shirt, but they cover the elbows a little bit, so when I'm in the prone, I'm not banging my elbows up all too much. The only thing I wish is that these had a collar. If I could find a baseball tee with a collar, I'd be set for tactical games clothing. Highly recommend good socks. These are just Solomon socks. These are also very disgusting, so we won't show those too much. They're just still very, very sweaty. And then last but not least for clothing, I recommend some knee sleeves. So some people wear knee pads. Well, not too many people, but a majority of people are wearing like these lifting sleeves, knee sleeves from Rogue. These not only are good with keeping some compression on your knees, but also they serve as a decent knee pad for when you're kneeling on some rocks and whatnot. So I actually did not wear these in Texas, wore them in Idaho, and I cannot recommend these enough. These are like 60, 80 bucks or so. They last a really long time, and they're beneficial for other reasons other than just tactical games, but also for going to the gym and whatnot. Last but not least is shoes. So my opinion is going to be on the minority side of things when it comes to footwear, but what I wear are zero shoes. So these are barefoot shoes with no padding. So these are no heel drop, a wide toe box, and I wear these all the time. These are my shoes I wear for literally everything. The reason why I do wide toe box, no heel drop, and a barefoot style shoe is because that's what your foot's designed to be. You're not designed to have all this extra support. So not having a heel drop helps, again, your Achilles tendon actually stretch out to its normal length. Not having the support on your arch of your foot is going to help your foot actually be stronger, and then your wide toe box is just going to allow your toes to spread out and help you just give a more natural feel of your feet. So I highly recommend transitioning to shoes like this, especially if you're bearing a lot of weight like you do in tactical games. It's just going to make your feet feel a lot better over time. Now, these aren't a running shoe by any means, but I have been running in these. I've had no issues whatsoever. The last thing we're talking about is just a little bit of nutrition advice. So tactical games is extremely strenuous. Now, this is kind of part of the kit that we're talking about because you kind of bring all of this out to the range. Sometimes at these matches, there's not really food available, so you got to bring out what you got, or there may be food trucks and stuff there on site, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So first and foremost, we'll talk about water. On the first day of my last match, I drank over 2 gallons of water and 4 electrolyte drinks, not counting my caffeine drink that I'll talk about in a second. So bringing out a lot of water is extremely important, and bringing electrolytes with you. When it comes to an electrolyte solution, I just find one that don't have dyes or artificial flavors in them if you can. If you're going to do a powder, or the Body Armor electrolyte drink is actually pretty good. It does have some stuff in there that I don't like to drink, but I don't drink them all the time. So again, just avoid food dyes if you can. What we do need to talk about is caffeine. So obviously a lot of us drink caffeine all the time, every day, but what I will highly recommend you not do is drink energy drinks. One, ever, but especially before tactical games, and do not drink pre-workout before a tactical games match. That will absolutely wreck you. It'll be detrimental to your health. It's actually a health risk. So what I recommend is do something like this. This is just an example that I do. So this is Clean Energy. This is 160 milligrams of caffeine. Generally speaking, I split this into 4 days. So it takes me 4 days to drink 1 can of this. For the tactical games, if I'm doing something strenuous like this, I want to be kind of just a little bit more alert throughout the day. I'll drink half of one of these a day. And I mix this with coconut water. So organic coconut water, and this is actually a USDA organic drink as well. This is a really good energy drink. So I can mix both of these together. It fills up a whole blender bottle, and I can sip on that throughout the day, or I can drink half of it in the morning. And this won't dehydrate me either. So majority of energy drinks and pre-workouts are going to dehydrate you. This is actually going to do the opposite. So this is green tea, coconut water with some salt and some honey. It's actually really good for you. So highly recommend this. So when it comes to food, this is actually kind of difficult for tactical games. So a lot of us that are competing in tactical games are already trying to take good care of ourselves, so eating healthy and whatnot. I'm on the side of things where I want to eat real food. I don't really care so much about macros and micros as much as I do just making sure I'm not eating poison. So, and this applies to even when I'm competing in things like tactical games. So I'm going to try and eat all organic food basically. So one example of that is protein bars. These are really good for just getting fast calories, getting some protein in, but finding a good one is very hard. What I have found is RAR bars. So these are actually a Christian company. They have verses on the back of their packaging, and these are all organic. They do need to be refrigerated. So if you unrefrigerate them, they're only good for a month, but if they refrigerate, I think they're good for 4 months, and they actually taste like really good. These are actually my favorite tasting protein bar. So highly recommend a protein bar like this. Don't get protein bars that have a ton of seed oils and food dyes and natural and artificial flavors in them, because you're just doing more detriment to your health than you really think you are. So when it comes to snacks throughout the day, I'm actually eating the same thing I eat almost every day. So I do organic cashew butter or almond butter, and then I have an organic spread of some kind. So this is just jam. The sugar that's in this is actually going to be really beneficial to you, and then this is some protein. And then I actually pack out, I actually fly with this, my wife's homemade sourdough bread. So buying bread from the store is, there's a ton of stuff in that bread that you don't want. So I'm bringing the homemade bread with me. And then what I do with this is I'll make a sandwich and cut up a banana on it, and I can eat a couple of those throughout the day. And this is actually really good for you. So aside from that, all I'm gonna do is just bring some fruit out to the range with me. So I like apples, so I'll bring a couple apples out and eat that. And then I just highly recommend a lunchbox like this that will help keep your stuff cold. So I'm actually able to put an ice pack in here, bring some of this food with me on the plane, put it in my carry-on, and then it'll survive the flight out, and then I'll be able to pack my food out with me. So again, tactical games is expensive, so being able to bring some of your food with you is going to be helpful, but also you can actually bring real food. So when you get out there and you're having to deal with food trucks or just the limited food options around the range, this is going to be much better for you than going out and getting fast food, because that's just avoid fast food at all costs. So aside from that, guys, the only thing else that I will do before a match is my breakfast smoothie. So my breakfast smoothie is raw milk, frozen banana, frozen cup of fruit, high vitamin C fruit, a scoop of organic protein, and then Thorne supplements for collagen and creatine, and then I'll throw some PB powder in there too. So it's about 600 calories, 60 grams of protein, and I bring all of that stuff with me as well. So all that to say, guys, it's just, these are just some options for food that you should consider. Be really diligent with eating real healthy food. This is literally the fuel that's going in your body to help you perform. So just avoid the junk. I know you're going to be very, very tired after these matches, and it's really easy just to get the quickest, fastest thing into your body. But I highly recommend against that. So I eat all of this stuff throughout the day. I don't really actually plan on eating like a real meal in between stages. And then at the end of the day, I'm just eating a lot of red meat and some good carbs to get me fueled up for the next day. All right, guys, I hope this video was helpful for any of you that are interested in the tactical games, or even some of you guys that are actively competing in the tactical games. So this is just my kit, just what I use. This is not, the end all be all exactly what you should do. This is not the food that you have to eat by any means. Just again, this is just an example of the stuff that I use. So hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you guys out at one of the tactical games matches. How many guys did you guys do this total?